So how you are feeling right
I'm a little anxious because, connecting back with folks at Inns. I don't know if it's visible in the video, but I am wearing the T-shirt as well, just to
now?
show some
Okay, nice.
connection there. But yeah, it's exciting. At the same time, it's a little bit of the how shall I put it? The onus is on us. So and I'm sure we'll talk about that. Me and my wife and our venture to actually do justice to a nice little incident on Sunday, which we will also talk
Just want
about.
to know what made you go for MBA, especially after having an aspirational job in US?
Yeah. So interestingly enough,
Because it's
about
something we need to know.
yeah, sure. So about 14 years ago, like they say in Hindi movies, right? I'd say 20 saal pehle. So no, I'll not go that far out. 14 years ago,
Yeah,
you're right,
right.
absolutely right. A 28-year-old or 27-year-old, whatever person living in Chicago, a dream job, economy was doing great. I was in construction, retail sector was booming, everything was fine. But then the question was, what next? Yeah, and this has been a theme which has been consistently playing a role in some of the major life decisions. So because of parents, because of and they are no more, but at that time they were not keeping well. Between my sister and I, so she's still there in the US at Johns Hopkins University. She's the brains in the family with like 3 PhDs and all. One of us had to move back. I said, fine, that should be me. So that was the trigger to come back to India in 2008. I continued working in construction in India, but number one, it's a different ball game here. Secondly, a lot of things that happened in construction, of course, 2008 with the Lehman crisis and everything else, economy was not doing very great. So as I say, it's a great time to go back and learn something new when the economy is not doing great. Now it's digital. At that time, I guess the option was to go to IMA, which worked out well, I guess.
Okay, right. How difficult was it to come back to India? Because you are there in Chicago and you are doing really well, basically. So how difficult was it for you?
It was difficult. I think there were two elements or three elements to it rather. Number one was on the social or slash family or personal front, right? Reconnecting with so many people after 8 or 10 years or thereabouts. Second was on the professional front. Like I said, right, construction was very different. A lot of things I did not agree with. Right from safety standards to environmental standards, respecting the, I'm not saying shady things happened, but I'm saying the obvious things did not happen, right? So there were a lot of disagreements. There was a lot of dissatisfaction also, yeah. Third was a bit of an instability, again, going back to the economy, right? So my goal was to spend time in Pune with my parents, had to move to Mumbai because of work reasons. Then, I was actually asked to move to, I was asked to move to Chandigarh or Mohali rather. Ironically, I was to be the project manager for the ISB Mohali campus.
Nice.
Well, again, that was also the time that made me think that, okay, this is not, other external factors are determining my career or my path. I think it's time to step back and probably get back in the driver's seat. So yeah, it was very difficult time. Not just that, again, this was also the time when, how shall I put it? A lot of people that you're grown up with in college times, they obviously were married and had kids and things like that. The ability to relate to what phase of life they were in versus where I was, that was also difficult. So, having that ear to listen to your woes, or that, sometimes literally the shoulder to cry on, it's not there. So yeah, it was a bit difficult.
Difficult. Oh yeah, I know it. It do know, like, what made you start on your own, especially after having a job at Amazon? What made you?
Before leaving, let me tell you how Amazon happened, by the way. We were in NCR at that point in time. And in around February 2015 is when somebody from my class actually sent out this about a role with Amazon. 2 or 3 times the interviews got rescheduled, and then there was like radio silence. Yeah. So I actually wrote to Jeff Bezos saying that this is not the way things should go. I may not be the best guy around, But if this is how HR in Amazon keeps, making an ass out of potential candidates, you're going to lose out on a lot of good people. I don't know what happened. A week later, hell broke loose. Okay. Apologies and interviews. I had 18 rounds of interviews. I thought they were interviewing for the CEO of Amazon in India, But as they say, it was a great year and a half. It, definitely learning a lot from, it was in a way heading back towards construction or project management, which is what I did not want to do. But most important part was the consistent travel, managing the execution of 7 fulfillment centers in a year's time. In a calendar year, I spent only about I would say 17 or 18 days in the office. I was literally traveling Monday to Saturday. Yeah? It took a toll on family life. It took a toll on a lot of other factors. So that was a decision for me to say that, okay, we need to, again, do a course correction. In fact, about 4 years ago from now, or 5 years ago, around this time, my wife and I took a week's break. We went to Puducherry or Pondicherry, literally sat on the beach for a week and we talked. What do we want out of life? The fundamental questions, right? What is it that we want to do? What is it where we see ourselves 5 years from now, 10 years from now? All those difficult conversations happened. And then the decision was that by December, I would end up leaving Amazon.
I also want to know, I want to know about your journey at IIM. Basically, you have done MBA, so IIM, and how did MBA prepare you for your entrepreneurial journey? How is it how you connect both of things together?
Mm-hmm. Wow, very, very interesting question. And I wish I had, an answer that was as great as the question itself.
Oh my God.
Number one, I think the biggest thing was that, and again, the onus is on the entrepreneur to live up to the reputation or the brand name that is behind you, right? So if you're introducing yourself at the early time, saying that, I'm a founder of a startup, they ask you your background, or obviously someone looks you up on LinkedIn and things like that. Typically, question number 1 or question 2 would be, oh, you're from IIM Ahmedabad. So suddenly the bar is raised very high. Yeah. So then, should one be overwhelmed that, hey, now, failure is no longer an option. I can't walk myself out of this conversation. I need to somehow, chug along, right? So that happens. That's more of a mental setup, so to speak. The second part was the support structure. Yeah. Third, and this was personally for me the biggest learning. Okay. For me, sitting in the classroom, it was extremely frustrating to learn a case study about, let's say, how Canon, broke Xerox's back in the mid 70s, or how it was Komatsu, really threw Caterpillar out of many markets and things like that. The constant feeling I used to have was, why are we learning 35, 40-year-old cases? What about new? And 2011, right? And that's when probably brands like Micromax or Zolo or something like that were in the mobile market, or Nokia was actually ruling the roost at that time. 2 years later, Nokia is nowhere in the market, right? Why aren't we learning what is happening now? The answer to that question comes when you actually start talking to people, when you're discussing market strategy, when you're talking evolution of markets and things like that, right? You look at incumbent, you got a startup, from nobody, suddenly competitor comes into the space. All these factors, which were there in the case study, the Komatsus and the Canons in the 70s, they happen in real life when you are there. Yeah. So I think that was personally for me, the biggest learning. And that's how I think IIM really helped out.
Okay, I want to know more about Kartha Stories. What is it all about, and what you are doing there? We want to know about it.
Sure. So Kartha Story in a nutshell, we like to define ourselves as your personal storyteller. Now, the idea being that for kids and families, India has a tremendous heritage or a culture of stories across geographies, across languages, timelines, and things like that. We would like to bring those stories with the India Connect in a modern format, in the sense, how can they be more relatable to kids and families today? How can they, again, some of the learnings from back then, how can they be inculcated or brought into day-to-day life today? Friendship, honesty, integrity, sharing, caring about others. These are again aspects which are very important in today's times, right? We've seen people do that. We hear
Right.
about people doing that. So the idea behind Kartha Story is this: that we want to create the largest and the go-to place for any stories which have a moral. Number one. Number two, use storytelling as a means of inculcating values, learnings, education. Yeah, and we would like to do that in multiple languages, and we would like to do that in multiple formats. By that, I mean, Baalgatha is one of our shows, our flagship show, in fact. It's for children between 3 and 7 years old. So more like Panchatantra and Jatak stories.
Yeah.
We have another show called Devgatha, which is mythological stories. But let's talk about the learnings that come out of it.
Okay.
Yeah. We have a show called Gatha, which is the National Bravery Award winners every year who have done something phenomenal. We talk about those stories. So I think the underlying question with Gatha is, what is the trigger? What really makes them different from other kids? And take that one brave act, do that one brave act wherein they dive into a stream, or, they're facing a leopard trying to save their younger sibling and things like that, right? And then we have fairy tales of India. So rather than the Rapunzels and again, phenomenal Eurocentric stories or stories from the Western cultures, we have amazing stories. In fact, we right now have a curated library of about 4,000 fairy tales from India. Many of them we hadn't, I've read most of them. I was not aware of them, that this was an Indian story. And then the interesting part is that, if 90% of the content is from India, now we know that there is a strong correlation between Panchatantra and Aesop's fables and, other cultures of the world, right? There are fairy tales. In fact, we have some fairy tales, same story. The geography changes. It's an African tale or a Japanese tale. Instead of a tiger, you may have a lion in Africa. Instead of a snake, you may have some other insect or a bird in Japan, right? The story is exactly the same.
Right.
So we're trying to bring that also, saying that, hey, kids or kids and parents, listen to these stories, or spend some time interacting with these stories. There's a lot to learn. So that's what Kartha Story is all about.
Also want to know, were you scared because Gatha stories involved something that you had never done before? Because it is.
No, yes. So again, bit of a backstory. Again, in Puducherry, the question was, if not Amazon, then what, right? The answer was storytelling, and we want to get into content, audio content production and podcasting. That was the answer. Again, going back to a previous question, how did IMA help out? And, Mrunal also has an MBA in marketing. She comes from an insurance background. She's a fellow of the Insurance Institute of India. So, a risk manager and probably, someone who's learned some management. Two people come together.
Yes.
We jotted down the list of skill sets required to get into the venture. Okay. Marketing, content creation, content distribution, a bit of technology element, a lot more of having the networks and things like that. Between the two of us, we had zero skill sets for the idea that we were getting into. Well, we did have one. We listened to a lot of stories. So,
that's nice.
So that was our only commonality, right? So were we scared? Probably for a second, sorry. And then we said, okay, this is an opportunity for us to actually learn on the job, literally, right? And that is the excitement, and that is the opportunity. Were we a little apprehensive when for the first time we bought the mic and we hit record? Absolutely apprehensive. We had little knowledge about sound control. We had very little idea. And now you can see, this is probably year number 5 of my office, which is like my makeshift recording studio. A lot more on the wall that you don't see. So little bit apprehensive, saying that, what about voice modulation? What about what about my pitch? How far should the mic be? Once you start getting into the technicality, suddenly you are overwhelmed because there are so many variables. Right? Then we just threw everything away and said, okay, hit record, start talking. At the most, you're going to sound pathetic. We'll have to find a better narrator. And fortunately, we ended up doing that. So that's where
That's very nice, because obviously there are so many challenges you have faced on this journey, on Gatha Stories journey, basically. So what was an expected challenge that you have faced on your venture, like on Gatha Stories you will face?
Wow. Again, great question. I think the expected challenge was how to distribute the content, you know, and I'm not talking about the technical part of it. Fortunately, in 2015, things had improved quite a bit. Now it's much easier now, record and probably at a click of a button, all the distribution can happen to Spotify or Apple
Yes,
Podcast or
right,
Google
right.
Podcast or wherever. It was still a bit manual back then, but the challenge was that how do I make my content available on a specific platform? Yeah. Our expected audience was, let's say, audience profile X. How do we reach out to them? What's the right medium
Right.
to communicate? And ironically, being a content company, how do we use content to actually communicate and get new listeners? Because every other solution we looked at, probably multiple digital media specialists or whatever, everybody said you have to run ads to get listeners. And I said, no, this is not the way to do it, right? So yeah, the expected challenge was how to reach out to the audience. And once we actually reached that stage, once we had a bit of a content library, how do we actually execute? So that was the challenge.
Oh, PM Modi ji mentioned you on Mann Ki Baat. So how did the mention in Mann Ki Baat happen? I want to know, like, how did it happen with you and how was it?
I wish I had a more dramatic or a better answer. I think it is, Ankita, I think the answer is that it just happened at the most unexpected time and in the most unexpected way, right? So in fact, after the fact, and this what I'm telling you first now is after the fact, I looked up all my communications, be it email or social media or whatever. There was no communication from, PMO office or from the information and broadcasting or whatever ministry. So it came at the most unexpected moment. We do listen to
like you don't know about it and it comes there.
Yeah. So we do listen to Mann Ki Baat every time it's broadcast. And it was, actually 11:01, not 11. My wife we were watching on YouTube. I was doing my taxes. She was, also preparing breakfast at that time. Sunday morning, take it easy, right? So he's, suddenly PM Modi starts talking about storytelling, and I look at Mrunal and she looks at me, and it's like, wow, I wish he, he talks a lot more about this. It's just like, is it just a headline, or is he going to, deep dive into it, right?
Yeah.
So then he started talking, and fine. After about 3.5 minutes or so, both of us it became passive listening. Yeah. Then suddenly, we hear the word, "Mujhe ek website ke bare mein pata chala hai, garthastory.in," and I said, "Oh, wait a minute, what?" Then my name got mentioned, or my pseudonym, Amar Vyas, right? And then we looked at it, oh, that's my picture, that's our picture, that's our dog also, even our dog Buddy, he became popular, I guess, because of it. And after that segment was over, the 35 seconds were over, for the next minute or so, we just did not know how to react. Number one is, did this really happen? Was it a dream?
Right.
Was it some sort of a jadoo tona that suddenly happened? And, and then back to reality, right? So that's what happened, at the most unexpected time and in the most unexpected way and in a positive, in a pleasant way, right? So, which was great, I think, which was really wonderful. Ironically, and let me also mention this. That very day, there was some problem with the website, and I know I appreciate your feedback about the website. Some of the images were not loading.
Oh.
So, just the day things had to break, which they do. So yeah, that really happened in the most unexpected way. And then, of course, we, a lot more other people also informed us, "Hey, did you know this has happened?" And I said, yeah, we do know now. Thank you. So yeah.
Like people called you that this has happened. Do you know about it?
People called. In fact, even in our neighborhood, the residents WhatsApp group, somebody messaged like within 3 minutes of the broadcast, while it was going on, rather. And by the time the things ended, suddenly we see 500 odd messages on WhatsApp and missed calls and whatnot. So yeah, it was a little bit overwhelming. Things did go crazy in a good way again. So yeah.
Right.
Very fortunate to have been mentioned. I think we must have done something right. Also appreciate the research team, behind Mann Ki Baat. I mean, they must have done some background research. I'm sure we got
obviously,
featured or picked up because we must have done something right.
Yeah, right. Exactly, actually. So how do you feel now? Like you already mentioned in Mann Ki Baat and have given so many interviews, I know that. So how do you feel now? What is the feeling you have now that what happening?
Wow. I think Monday, okay, so after the euphoria on Sunday, Monday was a bit of a vacuum. Okay,
Okay.
literally, that is when you're back to reality, right? That is when you're grounded
Right.
again. Not that, we were elated, of course, but obviously we were grounded. But Monday is when it was back to business, answering a lot more queries that we could not answer and, responding to questions and things like that. Um, we also spent a lot of time on the second call to action that the Prime Minister Modi ji mentioned about stories of unsung heroes. Let's say, from I think there was a
Mhm.
segment wherein he mentioned how about the stage 1857 onwards. Interestingly enough, we were planning a similar idea of unsung heroes throughout India's history. Yeah, particularly so in the last 150 odd years. Um, that is what we want to do now. How do we respond, or how do we appreciate, or how do we reciprocate the gesture from him? Is by actually doing what he expected or expects, I guess, us to do. So yeah,
Right.
that's what happened. So Tuesday, a lot of Tuesday and Wednesday went in planning. Of course, today's a Thursday. That's when the usual one-page sheet with the 6 questions: who, what, when, where, how, or why, how. All that thing went in. So probably next week onwards, we'll start doing something in that direction. But this week largely has been a lot of introspection. And then, of course, again, the question that I mentioned before, right? What next? So I think
Yeah.
that's what this
What
week has
next?
been so far.
Yeah, really nice. And I have listened to one of your interviews, and
Hmm.
you said that your wife is your partner in crime. Okay,
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
just got that note. Like, wow, it's very nice to listen, and I want to know, like, how is it having you and your better half take business decisions, because there
Hmm.
is also a professionalism and there is a personal life. So how you guys manage it, how it will help, and how are the challenges between you two?
Wow. Um, there are two phases to this answer. Okay. Number one is the first 3 or 4 months. Both of us working together out of our home office. She, there were a lot of disagreements, of course, early times in the idea. We're still exploring and figuring out. It did not work out well, to the extent that we said that the professional disagreements or any issues whatsoever were started creeping into the personal life or the household, right? And of course, you're working out of
Right,
home,
right.
so 24/7 you are in that environment. Yeah. So we actually decided that she takes up a full-time role of her own. She went back to insurance while I started work, continued working on Kartha Stories. About last year, we actually reincorporated and we structured in such a way. And I say this on a lighter note. We structured it in such a way that for operational reasons, I report to her. Yeah. So I'm very happy
Okay.
because now I only have one boss, at home and at work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that worked out
Right.
very well. It's a secret to domestic bliss if the spouse, if the couple is working together. Just admit to one, accept one spouse as your boss and live, live with that. But on a more serious note, what it also does is that it brings in accountability. If both our co-founders both have equal powers or equal roles, so to speak, who are you going to be accountable
Right.
to, right? Uh, it's not easy answering some of the tough questions that your boss asks sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the
Exactly.
good part is there is accountability. So I think that is what's working out well for us. The other part was, and something that we are in a bit of a transition towards. She's taken up the role of content, creation, production part of it. I'm looking at content marketing and slowly the actual physical marketing part, right? Talking to brands and connecting with other partners and things like that. This is again something that I've not done on a B2C basis, the business and other purpose from for pre-Gatha story phase. I've done that in varying degrees, but that's also a new challenge or a new skill set. So that also is a good opportunity because she has done it. So now, she becomes an advisor, or she becomes that Mahout
Right.
with that Ankush, right? Hati ko karne ke liye ke.
Yes,
Keep moving,
yes.
keep moving. So
Keep
that works out very well. I think it's a good way of checks and balances.
at Amar being with us. Basically, thank you so much for answering all the questions so patiently. And I will also tell the audience when they will watch. So if they had any questions regarding the conversation we had, they will write to us and we will write to you. And I hope you will write to us back for the
No,
answering.
absolutely, I will. And I think the biggest learning from this experience again was that have one at the most two, best ways that someone can reach out to me or at Kartha Story. So definitely, amar@karthastory.com is the email address.
Yes,
I
yes,
do
we
try and
know.
respond within 48 hours, and that's also a discipline that I'm gonna, I've set for myself, sort of. Happy to answer any questions.